Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to my Chapter 2 reaction of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. This is beyond the scope that I expected. Imagine Whedon swapped Darkseid for Steppenwolf in the history lesson. It's crazy. Now I understand why Whedon shortened down the history lesson so much, because he was told they only wanted a 2-hour film. The 2-hour time limit wasn't Whedon's decision. But still, I don't understand why they axed Darkseid for Steppenwolf. It really doesn't make sense. But Chapter 2, The Age of Heroes, is absolutely fantastic. The scope of the history lesson is like nothing we've seen since Lord of the Rings. Because in the Fellowship of the Ring, of course, we have that whole history lesson, don't we? About the rings and what happened to them. It's very similar. Snyder's obviously inspired by that and tried to bring that into the DC universe. And it really does work. You've got Zeus, you've got the lantern, you've got a lantern, you've got the Atlanteans, you've got the Amazons uniting together. The world's always better when we unite together. And we are so divided in the modern world as well. So it's a great lesson to learn. But the scope, the breadth, the epicness of that history lesson is just sensational. And it brings something new to DC live action because nobody's seen the scope of this before. This is a massive film and it really does take its time. Now, this is only the second chapter I've seen. I haven't seen anything more than that because I'm watching the movie chapter by chapter, then reacting to it here. I think that's the best thing, non-spoilery, but it's really interesting. We get introduced to Silas Stone, which is not a spoiler because you know that from the theatrical cut. Interesting, if you remember in Justice League, how he and the caretaker were talking. A bit of that is not part of the scene. That's interesting. It is interesting to see what Snyder envisioned and what Whedon cut out and actually added on to what Snyder did as well. It's really weird. There's certain sequences where for example, when Arthur meets Bruce Wayne, it's pretty much a similar thing. And I just think it's the tone and the colour palettes that are different. And it's just really weird that they redid that scene. And it was all about the colour palettes. Pathetic. But already, you can see an epic of a movie taking its time, letting everything breathe. It's not just about allowing the character development to breathe, because in these first 2 chapters, we've only seen Cyborg used sparingly. He's got so much bigger part to play in this film, obviously from the trailers and what we've heard already. And so it's just very, very interesting. We've heard him say a couple of things. He's not happy, obviously, but it is very, very interesting. You know, we've got other characters to be introduced to. Ryan Choi looks interesting. Don't know much about him, from the 2 chapters as well. Expect to see more of him. Obviously, Jeremy Irons' Alfred is very, very he's very chappy with his humour, which I love. Very, very different to what Michael Caine did. But apparently we see lots more of him in the whole movie as well. Look, I'm just bowled away by this movie because, let's be honest here, all these years we've been expecting the best thing ever. Zack's been leaking stuff, telling us stuff, and I the other day I was thinking to myself, I really don't want to be disappointed here because we fought for Zack. It's his vision. We've got to respect what he puts on the screen, but he hasn't let us down one iota. What he told us was going to be there so far is there already. What I like about these first 2 chapters is the build-up. The build-up's great. And as I've already said, there's so much more to come. And just think, this 4-hour movie is just the 3rd part of a 5-story arc. Sensational. And of course, we want more. Look, this is just difficult for the studio now. It really is. Because they took a stance with the director. Don't forget Warner Media is a newly built company. but Warner Brothers Pictures still houses a lot of the people and executives that drove Snyder out. So it's very interesting. So while they're over there chomping at the bit because they don't like him, he's protected by Stanky and Keelar and Sarnoff. But mainly, I think his relationship is with AT&T. And so AT&T are the paymasters here. So I would predict in the end that Warner Brothers Pictures will just be sucked up by the rest of Warner Media. I don't know why people like Toby are still around. I don't get it. It's a bit weird. But we will see what happens in the future. But this film, so far, is a mammoth. The history lesson plays out beautifully. The way Diana does the narration, it's how I always envisioned it. It simply is just, look, it's off the scale. There's no other way of describing it. There's just so much good in this. And if I've given any spoilers away, I apologise because my brain ain't winding in. It's difficult when you've just finished something. You're on a high. And I'm sitting here watching this, as I said in the first chapter reaction, in the dark. And I can't believe I'm able to see this. I don't want to say Marvel. I don't like saying Marvel when I connect to DC. No. But this marvellous sight to behold. It's not just that the visuals are stunning and the choreography and the way it's directed. It's the emotion of the thing. There's something so grandiose happening here. And look, it's sometimes with fans, when you hear they're saying it's the best thing ever, you think, well, are they just a bit too biased because we all love Zack? And you may be thinking that about me. No. If I didn't like what I saw on the screen, I would tell you in a constructive way. But this is incredibly special. I want to call Zack Snyder. I don't have his number and say, please, boss, teach me how to create art like this. Because what you're seeing, what's on the page, the dialogue, and what you're seeing, the imagery, and all of that is fantastic. And we still haven't seen Superman come back yet. And there's so much more stuff to look forward to. Barry Allen, it's just... and by the way, in Chapter 2 as well, we actually see Atlantis. We see Voco. I don't want to go into it too much and give spoilers, but it's interesting. Voco's appearance is interesting without giving anything away. A bit different. And what I would say is his body language is very, very different. He's more like kind of, how can I put it? Kind of an Obi-Wan Kenobi a lot more. I know that in the Aquaman movie, he's the same kind of character and he's supposed to be a mentor. But he's much more of that in this, from what I've seen of Chapter 2. He's very, very different in James Wan's Aquaman. So it's kind of interesting, the differences, the way he stands. I don't know if he seems stronger in... I don't know which film... obviously, in James Wan's movie, we see him when he's a lot younger. So, look, it's the differences are very, very interesting, and it's clear not everything James did was kind of faithful to what Zack did. And I think that's mainly because Jeff Johns wanted to change that and nothing to do with James Wan being disrespectful to Zack's vision. But I think it's pretty much all there. I think you could from what I've seen in the first 2 chapters, you could step out of this film and going to Aquaman. There's a kind of one thing that's still there while they're talking. Again, I don't want to go into it. That's interesting as well, and something that James didn't want to do himself. So that's interesting as well. But actually what Zack does with that, and again, I don't want to go into it too much, it's kind of scientific. It kind of makes sense that they would have a conversation within that. I'll talk about it when I do the spoiler review. And this, obviously the spoiler review won't be in chapters. We'll do it properly. This is a non-spoiler chapter by chapter review, so I can keep on coming back and giving you feedback about how I feel about it. But I think, what Zack does with the way they talk makes sense scientifically, actually, rather than the way in James Wan's movie, it's like, we can talk underwater. We have that ability. You don't get, again, without me going into it. And so Zack's always thinking about the science of things, the reality of things, as well as the emotion and the physical attributes of the characters as well. Look, as I say, I'm bowled away thus far. I didn't expect it to be this enigmatic. Look, I know I didn't want to talk about the other film, and as far as I'm concerned, this is the only Justice League movie. But the scope of this, not just the length of this, but the scope, the size of this film, you really feel like you're being introduced to a universe, like you're being introduced to the Atlanteans, the Lanterns, and, you know, the other characters as well, the human being. You know, it's very, very interesting. I think if you're teaching film school, right, if you've got a film university or film college, you should be putting this. Actually, you should be putting up Justice League and the Snyder Cut one after the other, and saying this is what you don't do, and this is what you do. You go with your vision, you go with your art, and what Justice League is a can created by a factory that just wants to do the bare minimum. And what Zack did was try and create something, tell a saga. Very similar to what George Lucas did with Star Wars. Of course, Star Wars was Lucas's own creation, and DC's been around for yonks. But Snyder takes his vision and he re-envisions the DC universe into something fantastical. And, you know, of course, Snyder is kind of based in reality with the way he tells his story, but he does still do the fantastical so well. And you finish the chapter and you just feel so amazing for doing so. And you just think, wow, what is this guy got for me next? So that's my chapter 2 reaction. Again, comment down below if you've seen the film already. Let me know what you think. I'm off to watch chapter 3. Wow, I don't know what's up next. I can't wait to find out. Wow. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back later to react to chapter 3. See you again soon.